is again into the round of 16 in Miami, disposing of Magdalena in straight sets, 6-3, 7-6.
Another impressive performance from Alexandra Eala. She played so well.
Congratulations. You are headed back to the fourth round here in Miami. And to do it, you had to get through a fighter today in Magdalena. You know how tough she can be. Other than this incredible crowd, what do you think got you over the finish line?
Oh, I think patience was a very key aspect of how I played today. You said it first, Magda is such a fighter, and every time I played against her, she's put me in such difficult positions. So kudos to her for playing well, and yeah, I really enjoyed the battle.
It is so much fun to watch you play. You are so seemingly fearless. You take the ball so early. You redirect so well. Has that always been your style of game, or has there been a coach along the way that said, this is how you're going to play?
I want to think that being aggressive has always kind of been what I've aimed to do. Maybe it's only come out well like in the past year or so, but no, I think it's really part of my game. Of course, I have an amazing team who have really fine-tuned my game and really helped me take it to a next level now. But yeah, I think being aggressive is something that I like to do. Yeah.
Okay, last year at this time, you were ranked 140 in the world, and coming into the Miami Open this year, you're 29 in the world. What would you say is the biggest difference in you standing here today as both a person and a player?
I think I've matured a lot in the past year. I've been put in a lot of high pressure moments, a lot of big stages, which I am so grateful for and wouldn't trade for the world. But you know, being back in the fourth round, it makes me feel the same as I did last year. I'm so happy. I'm so excited. And
listen to me very carefully, because if you want to understand what is about to happen on that searing blue hard court, you have to completely erase everything you think you know about professional tennis. You have to forget the sterile statistics that scroll across the bottom of your television screen. You have to forget the computer algorithms, the point differentials, the seeding numbers, and the superficial metrics that analysts use to fill the empty airwaves. There are certain matches on the professional tour where the numbers dictate the reality, where the player with the higher ranking and the bigger serve simply walks out, executes a mathematical formula, and walks away with the victory. But then there are matches like the one we are about to witness. Matches where the numbers mean absolutely, unequivocally nothing. Matches where the sport transcends the simple geometry of a court and becomes something far deeper, something entirely visceral, something fundamentally tied to the core of human psychology and physical suffering. Alexandra Eala versus Karolina Muchova is not just a round of 16 clash under the blistering, oppressive, blinding lights of the Miami Open. It is not just another box to be checked on the way to a silver trophy. No, what we have here is a psychological thriller of the absolute highest order. It is a violent tactical chess match played at 100 miles an hour, where every single move is a matter of athletic life and death. It is a definitive, uncompromising test of whether absolute monolithic structure can survive absolute brilliant disruption. It is a terrifying question of whether a relentless, mechanical, suffocating rhythm can hold its ground when it is dragged kicking and screaming into total, unadulterated chaos. And perhaps more importantly than anything else, it is the ultimate litmus test, the singular defining moment of truth to determine whether Alexandra Eala's recent meteoric rise is the undeniable reality of a future multi-time Grand Slam champion in the making, or if she is about to smash headfirst into a brick wall of complexity that her young, developing mind is simply not ready to handle. If you take a step back and look at this matchup purely on paper, it almost looks too simple, almost like a cliche. It looks like a classic textbook contrast of styles, the exact kind of hypothetical scenario you would read about in a high-level masterclass coaching manual. But to truly grasp the gravity of this collision, we have to tear these players apart down to their microscopic foundations. Let us start in the first corner with Alexandra Eala. She is the archetype, the absolute gold standard of the modern, aggressive baseliner, a player forged in the unrelenting fires of the new tennis millennium. She is a biological machine built on the sacred, unyielding foundation of repetition. When you sit in the front row and watch Alexandra Eala hit a tennis ball, you are not just watching a sport, you are watching a flawless masterclass in kinetic biomechanics. The power does not come from her arm. The power originates deep in the earth. It drives up through the soles of her shoes, igniting the massive muscles in her legs, twisting through her core with the violent torque of a coiled spring, and finally culminating in the explosive, terrifying whip of her left arm. She steps onto the court and she has one singular, overriding, undeniable goal. She wants to establish a pattern. She wants to dictate the tempo, the temperature, and the physical reality of the universe you are both currently occupying. She wants to pull you into a hypnotic, lung-burning, relentless rhythm that feels exactly like you are running up a steep hill in deep, wet sand with a heavy vest strapped to your chest. She relies on that heavy, incredibly lethal lefty forehand, a shot that is so fundamentally violent it almost feels personal. She does not just strike the ball, she punishes it, she disrespects it. She loads that yellow felt with so much ferocious biting topspin that it does not just bounce off the hard court, it kicks. It leaps off the surface like a wild bucking horse, exploding up above the shoulder of a right-handed opponent, completely obliterating their natural strike zone and forcing them to hit the ball from an impossibly awkward defensive posture. She wants those deep, bruising, agonizing cross-court exchanges. She wants to dig her heels into the baseline, lower her center of gravity, and just unleash wave after wave of relentless, heavy physical punishment. She wants to make your quadriceps scream. She wants to test the absolute limits of your cardiovascular system, probing your lungs for a weakness, waiting for that moment when you are gasping for air between points. She wants to grind her opponents down into a fine demoralized dust over the course of 3 grueling, soul-crushing hours. Her game is an exercise in total, absolute control. It is a game of calculated margins, of relentless, suffocating pressure that builds and builds and builds, point after point, game after game, set after set, until the player standing across the net simply snaps. They either snap physically, their legs turning to heavy lead, or they snap mentally, their spirit broken by the sheer inevitability of the incoming barrage. Eala wants to put you in a cage of her own making. She wants to lock the door. And she wants you to look around, utterly exhausted, and realize that there is no way out. And then in the other corner, stepping out of the shadows, you have Karolina Muchova. And I need you to understand that Muchova is in every conceivable, measurable, philosophical way the exact antithesis of everything I just described to you. If Alexandra Eala is a metronome, ticking with brutal, predictable, relentless, machine-like precision, Karolina Muchova is the heavy iron hammer that smashes that metronome into 1,000 unrecognizable, jagged pieces. Muchova does not want to give you rhythm. In fact, her entire existence on a tennis court, her entire philosophy of the sport, her entire reason for breathing the humid Miami air is dedicated to stealing your rhythm away and replacing it with pure, unfiltered anxiety. She is a saboteur. She is a phantom. She is an artist of extreme discomfort. She is a guerrilla warrior in a sport that is far too often defined by brainless, repetitive baseline trench warfare. She will absolutely not stand 3 feet behind the baseline and trade heavy topspin blows with you. She considers that to be a fundamental, insulting failure of imagination. Why hit the same ball twice when you have an entire canvas to paint on? Muchova changes the height of the ball. She changes the spin. She changes the tempo, the speed, the direction, the depth, the angle. And she does not just do this from point to point, hoping to catch you off guard. She will do it 3, 4, 5 times within the exact same rally, creating a terrifying, chaotic tapestry that completely short-circuits her opponent's brain. Picture it in your mind. She will give you a heavy topspin forehand deep to the baseline, pushing you back onto your heels, making you think the baseline rally has begun. And then the very next second, as you set your feet to return fire, she will step in and carve a biting, skidding backhand slice that barely clears the white tape of the net, carrying absolutely no pace, and dies on the gritty hard-court surface like a dropped stone. And just when your burning legs manage to sprint forward and scrape that ball off the ground, just when you think you have adjusted to the low trajectory, she will float a high, looping, agonizing moonball deep into the opposite corner, just to completely obliterate your internal timing and force you to backpedal and generate your own pace from a dead, agonizing stop. Her game is not a statement. Eala makes statements. Muchova asks questions. And she asks them over and over and over again in 1,000 different highly complex languages until you look down at your shaking hands, look down at your racket, and realize you have absolutely no answers left to give. And that right there, that massive fundamental philosophical divide, that Grand Canyon of strategic difference, is exactly where this match becomes incredibly dangerously complicated for the young phenomenon that is Alexandra Eala. Now, if you take a step back and look at the run Eala has had so far in this tournament, you have to admit, if you are being entirely honest, that it has been nothing short of spectacular. It has been a revelation. But more than being physically impressive, it has been deeply, profoundly revealing about the architecture of her mind. Before she even earned the right to step onto the court for this moment, she had to survive an absolute, unmitigated bloodbath. A 3-hour and 20-minute marathon against the veteran Laura Siegemund, which was, without a shadow of a doubt, the longest, most physically demanding, most emotionally draining match of Eala's entire young career. And if you know anything about the way Laura Siegemund plays tennis, you know she is a player who thrives in the mud. She thrives on disruption, on weird, jagged angles, on awkward, disjointed patterns, on long, frustrating pauses between points that make you feel like you woke up and forgot how to hit a tennis ball. Eala survived that agonizing war of attrition. She proved to the entire locker room that her lungs could handle the deep, dark water. She proved she could take a punch, wipe the blood from her mouth, and keep moving forward. Then, barely recovered, she walked right back out onto the searing hard court and faced Magda Linette, a highly structured, highly intelligent, profoundly dangerous counterpuncher who was riding the massive, overwhelming emotional high of having just beaten the #1 player in the world. And Eala did not just survive Linette, she systematically, coldly, and ruthlessly dismantled her. She controlled the narrative of that match from the absolute opening ball, but there was a specific, crucial, defining moment in the second set of that match that we need to talk about. A moment that tells you everything you need to know about Eala's current trajectory. She found herself down 3-5. Her back was pressed firmly, uncomfortably against the wall. The momentum had completely shifted across the net. The massive Miami crowd was tense, completely silent, collectively holding its breath. That exact scenario, down late in a set against a veteran, is the exact moment where young, inexperienced players panic. That is the moment where the stadium lights suddenly get way too bright. That is the moment where the oxygen leaves the stadium, where the heart rate spikes to 180 beats per minute, where they start overhitting, where they rush the service toss, where they desperately try to hit a spectacular, impossible, low percentage winner off a ball they have absolutely no business attacking. But Eala showed us something entirely different. She showed us a terrifying, chilling level of patience. She showed a preternatural composure, a cold-blooded calmness that you usually only see in multiple-time Grand Slam champions who have been on the tour for a decade. She showed an elite level of neurological processing and decision-making under the most suffocating, crushing pressure imaginable. She did not look at the scoreboard. She stayed entirely inside her own bubble. She trusted the biomechanics she had drilled tens of thousands of times in practice. She trusted her heavy ground strokes, and she systematically, calmly, and ruthlessly fought her way out of that deep hole to absolutely dominate and crush Linette in the ensuing tiebreak. It was a masterclass in mental fortification, but here is the harsh, cold, terrifying reality that Alexandra Eala has to wake up to today as she prepares for this round of 16 match. Karolina Muchova is not Laura Siegemund, and she is certainly, absolutely not Magda Linette. Karolina Muchova is a vastly more evolved, vastly more lethal, and infinitely more purposeful version of that exact same problem, because Muchova does not just disrupt a rally for the sake of causing chaos. She does not just throw random junk at you, cross her fingers, and hope you make an unforced error. She disrupts with deadly, surgical, premeditated purpose. Every single awkward ball she gives you, every strange spin, every drop in pace is a trap. It is a carefully laid snare. When Muchova hits that backhand slice, it is not a defensive bailout shot. It is not something she does because she is late to the ball, or because her footwork was sloppy. It is a highly calculated, highly offensive strategic weapon designed with a master architect's precision to elicit a very specific weak response from you. She uses that heavy underspin to keep the ball impossibly, aggravatingly low on the hard court. She forces you to bend your knees until the lactic acid screams through your muscles. She forces you to scoop the heavy dead ball up from below your own waist, a physical location where absolutely no offensive power can be generated. And she knows exactly what is going to happen next. It is simple physics. She knows that because you are hitting from a compromised, defensive, completely awkward physical posture, your reply is going to lack pace. It is going to lack depth. It is going to float harmlessly over the net. And the very millisecond, the absolute fraction of a second you leave that ball even an inch short, Muchova is no longer standing on the baseline. The trap has been sprung. She is already moving. She is gliding forward. A silent predator sensing blood in the water, cutting off the angles, closing the distance to the net with terrifying, elegant speed. And let me tell you right now, let me make this perfectly clear. Once Karolina Muchova gets inside the service box, once she establishes her position at the net, she is arguably one of the greatest, most instinctual, most technically flawless finishers in the history of the modern women's tour. She has hands of absolute pure silk. She does not panic when the ball comes fast. She can hit the delicate, agonizing drop volley that kisses the tape and stops dead in its tracks. She can hit the deep, punishing punch volley into the open corner that leaves you completely stranded. She can take a heavy passing shot out of the air and hit a swinging drive volley for a clean, demoralizing winner. The net is her kingdom. She built it, she owns it, and she rules it with absolute, unquestionable authority. So you see, you have to understand that this match is no longer just a simple question of whether Alexandra Eala can stay patient. That is the baseline requirement. That is the bare minimum just to step on the court today. Patience was the test against Lynette. This match is an entirely different, highly advanced examination. This is a profound question of whether Eala has the neurological capacity, the sheer raw mental processing power, to handle a grueling multi-hour match where the rhythm never ever, not even for a single point, settles into a comfortable place. Can she handle the profound, overwhelming mental fatigue of never getting to hit the exact same shot twice in a row? Can her young brain adapt in real time, split second by split second, to an opponent who is a literal tactical shapeshifter? And now we have to talk about the environment. We have to bring the invisible third player onto the court because we cannot analyze this tactical war without bringing the brutal Miami conditions into the equation. The weather and the specific nature of this hard court surface are going to massively dictate the reality of this match. And this is exactly where the tactical analysis gets incredibly fascinating, almost paradoxical. If you look at it purely from a theoretical textbook standpoint, the conditions in Miami in the middle of the afternoon should absolutely, without question, heavily favor Alexandra Eala. The air down there is not just hot, it is thick, it is heavy, the humidity is completely oppressive. The moment you step out of the air-conditioned locker room and into the stadium tunnel, it wraps around your lungs like a hot, wet, suffocating blanket. And because of that moisture in the air, the courts in Miami play significantly slower, significantly grittier than a standard indoor hard court. The tennis balls themselves change. They absorb the moisture. They fluff up. And after just 3 or 4 games, they stop flying through the air like bullets and start moving through that heavy, humid soup like heavy, waterlogged medicine balls. What does all of that mean for the actual tennis being played? It means the rallies naturally, inevitably extend. It means it is incredibly, almost impossibly difficult to step up onto the baseline and just crack a clean, flat, powerful winner right through the court. You cannot just blast somebody off the court in Miami. The physics of the environment will not allow it. You have to earn every single inch of real estate, every single point with buckets of sweat and burning lungs. And usually, historically speaking, over the decades of this tournament, that specific type of brutal environment heavily favors the grinder. It favors the player who has the larger lung capacity, the stronger legs, the deeper reserves of willpower. It favors the player who is entirely willing to stay out there in the baking sun and hit 20, 30, even 40 agonizing shots in a single point, just waiting, with predatory patience for the opponent's lactic acid to build up so high that their muscles literally misfire and stop working. That is Alexandra Eala's territory. That is her sanctuary. That is where she makes her living. That is her happy place. But, and this is a massive match-defining but, tennis is a game of beautiful, cruel paradoxes. And here's the massive, mind-bending twist in this specific narrative. Those exact same heavy, slow, suffocating conditions that favor Eala's endurance also make Karolina Muchova's brand of slice-and-dice disruption infinitely more uncomfortable, infinitely more venomous to play against. Why? Because when the ball is physically heavy and the air is thick and the gritty texture of the hard court is aggressively gripping the felt of the ball, and Muchova starts deploying her slice, that ball is not popping up into a comfortable strike zone. It is staying glued to the surface. It is skidding away from you with a vicious, unpredictable snake-like bite. When Muchova changes the spin, the heavy ball reacts more violently, more erratically off the court. It means that as the player on the receiving end, as Alexandra Eala, you are never ever getting completely clean contact. You are constantly making microscopic frantic adjustments